The promise under the crimson moon. The moon floated low above the old valley, its red glow bathing the forest in silent fire. The wind carried the scent of wet soil and forgotten prayers. In the distance stood the Eldon mansion, half ruined yet alive with a quiet pulse, as if the walls still breathed secrets. Amelia walked slowly through the misty road, her long cloak heavy with rain. Her heart pounded with both fear and defiance. Tonight was her wedding night, though the world refused to bless it. No family came, no friends stayed. They said she was marrying a curse. Inside the mansion, candles flickered along the cracked marble walls. Each flame bent toward a figure waiting at the end of the hall. Lucian. Pale as moonlight, eyes dark as a forgotten lake. He stood still, dressed not like a monster, but like a man who carried centuries of silence on his shoulders. When Amelia entered, Lucian bowed his head slightly. His voice was soft, ancient, and strange. "You should not have come, Amelia. Once you cross this door, your life will never belong to the sun again." Amelia smiled faintly, hiding the tremor in her hands. "I have lived long enough in the shadow of others. If this is darkness, then I choose it." Lucian's gaze lingered on her courage. For a moment, the silence between them felt holy. He reached out his hand, and she placed hers into it. His skin was cold, yet something inside it felt alive, a faint rhythm, as if an old heart still tried to remember how to beat. The old priest, blind and trembling, began the ritual. His voice echoed in the empty hall. No witnesses, no music, only rain striking the windows like restless ghosts. When the vows were done, Lucian lifted her hand to his lips and whispered a word that made the candles shiver. A golden mark appeared on Amelia's wrist, delicate, glowing softly under the candlelight. She gasped. "What is this?" "A seal," Lucian said quietly. "A promise older than kingdoms. It binds our fates until the moon forgets to rise." Outside, thunder cracked. The valley trembled. The rain turned crimson for a heartbeat, and somewhere in the shadows, unseen eyes watched their union. Later that night, Amelia stood near the tall window looking at the storm. Lucian approached quietly, his reflection faint beside hers. "They will come for you," he murmured. "Who?" she asked, turning. "Those who think love must be pure to be real. They never forgive what they cannot understand." His words struck her deeper than fear. But before she could answer, a faint knock echoed through the hall. Lucian froze. The scent of ash filled the air. The door opened by itself, and a stranger stepped in, wearing a smile that did not reach his eyes. He bowed slightly toward Lucian. "So it is true," the man said, his tone sharp with arrogance. "The last heir of the night marries a mortal? The council will not be pleased." Lucian's jaw tightened. "Leave, Cassian. This house is no longer bound to their rule." Cassian's smile widened. "Then I suppose the girl should know what kind of man she married." Before Amelia could speak, Cassian lifted his hand. The candles died. Darkness swallowed the room. And in that instant, she heard the whisper of wings and the sound of something ancient awakening beneath the mansion. When the light returned, Cassian was gone, but a single red feather lay at their feet. Lucian picked it up slowly, his eyes darkening. "The curse has been broken," he whispered, "and now they will hunt us both." The storm outside roared louder, as if the sky itself had chosen a side. Amelia stood beside Lucian, her fear melting into quiet resolve. Whatever hunted them, she would face it, not as a victim, but as his equal. For the first time, Lucian looked at her not as a mortal, but as destiny itself. And somewhere deep beneath the mansion, an ancient gate began to stir. The shadow air, the night after the storm, was silent. But silence in the Eldon Valley was never peace. Amelia woke to the sound of faint whispers rising through the floorboards like the echo of dreams not yet finished. She looked beside her, but Lucian was gone. Only a faint trace of silver dust remained on the pillow where his head had rested. She stood up, wrapped herself in his dark cloak, and followed the sound. Each step down the staircase felt heavier, as if the mansion itself was testing her resolve. Torches along the wall lit on their own, guiding her toward the ancient cellar. At the end of the corridor stood a wooden door sealed with iron symbols. The same golden mark on her wrist pulsed softly, responding to something behind it. When she touched the door, it opened without force, revealing a chamber filled with forgotten relics, broken mirrors, and a single stone chest glowing faintly with red light. Lucian stood there, his eyes reflecting the faint crimson hue. "You should not have come here," he said quietly. "You said we are bound," Amelia replied. "If you hide, I feel it. If you fear, I feel it too." Lucian's expression softened, but his gaze turned distant. "This place holds the truth of my name," he said, "and the reason they will never forgive what we did." He walked to the stone chest and placed his palm on it. The runes began to shift, revealing a sigil shaped like a rising sun pierced by thorns. "Long before I was cursed, my family guarded the blood of dawn, the power that could end the night forever. But greed divided us. My brother, Cassian, wanted to use it to rule both humans and immortals. I refused. The council called it betrayal. They sealed me away to keep the balance. And the one who freed me—" He paused, looking at her wrist. "Was you." Amelia stared at him in disbelief. "I didn't mean to free anything. You chose love over fear," Lucian said softly. "And that choice shattered the last seal of the council." As he spoke, the chest began to tremble. Faint light spilled from its cracks, forming a mist that shaped itself into symbols hovering in the air. They twisted, aligning into a name. "The Shadow Heir." Lucian stepped back, his face pale. "They found him," he whispered. "The bloodline was never gone." "My son still lives." Amelia froze. "Your son?" "Not born of mortal blood," Lucian said, his voice trembling. "A spirit bound to the fortune of my family. He was hidden when the curse began, guarded by the last loyal guardian. But if Cassian knows, he will use him to claim the throne of night." The light faded suddenly, leaving the chamber in cold darkness again. Only the heartbeat of the mansion echoed in the distance, slow, heavy, alive. Amelia placed her hand on Lucian's chest, feeling the faint rhythm of his borrowed life. "Then we find him first," she said firmly. "You said this power was born to protect, not destroy. We'll prove it." Lucian looked at her for a long moment. His expression carried both fear and wonder. "No mortal has ever walked into the night and returned whole," he whispered. "Then I will be the first," she answered quietly. The mansion shuddered. The mirrors on the walls reflected countless versions of their faces, some human, some monstrous, all carrying the same determination. Then, from above, a loud crash broke the silence. The ceiling shook, dust raining from the old beams. Lucian turned sharply, his eyes glowing faintly red. "They're here," he said. Before Amelia could ask who, the door burst open, and dark figures cloaked in ash poured into the hall. They moved too fast for human eyes, shadows bending around them like smoke. Lucian stepped forward, his voice like thunder. "You should have stayed in the tombs." The nearest shadow lunged, but Lucian caught it mid-air with a flick of his hand. It burst into ash, leaving behind a faint metallic scent. Amelia stared in horror and awe. Lucian looked back at her. "Run to the eastern gate. Find the mirror marked with fire. It will show you the path to the heir." "I won't leave you," she said. "You will," he said firmly, his tone softer now. "Because if I fight them all, I may not return." "But you must reach him." "He is the only one who can end this war." Before she could argue, Lucian raised his hand. A gust of invisible wind lifted her off her feet, carrying her toward the upper corridor. She screamed his name, but his figure was already fading behind the storm of ash and light. When she landed, the mansion was silent again, except for one distant sound. The echo of Lucian's voice, faint but clear. "Find the Shadow Heir, Amelia, before Cassian does." She stood alone in the flickering torchlight, the golden mark on her wrist burning brighter than ever. The corridor ahead glowed faintly red, the direction of the eastern gate. With trembling resolve, she began to run. The mirror of fire. The storm had calmed, but the sky above Eldon Valley still burned red. The air smelled of iron and secrets. Amelia ran through the outer gardens of the mansion, her cloak torn by branches and her hands trembling with cold. Behind her, faint roars echoed, not of beasts, but of something ancient struggling to wake. She reached the eastern wall where vines hung over a massive stone arch. Strange symbols shimmered faintly beneath the moss. One of them, a burning circle, pulsed with soft orange light. She pressed her hand against it. The golden mark on her wrist responded instantly, sending a surge of warmth through her veins. The wall split open like a door, revealing a narrow chamber filled with a low humming sound. In the center stood a tall mirror made of black glass framed in molten metal. Its surface flickered like liquid fire, distorting the air around it. Amelia stepped closer. The mirror shimmered, showing her reflection, but it wasn't her. The woman inside had the same face, yet her eyes glowed faintly red, and her expression carried the weight of centuries. The reflection spoke first. "You seek the heir," it said softly. "But do you know what he truly is?" Amelia tried to steady her voice. "Lucian said he's the only one who can end the war." The reflection smiled, but there was sorrow in its eyes. Every war ends the same way, with the death of the one who believes in peace. Before Amelia could respond, the mirror rippled. The fire inside it expanded outward, surrounding her completely. She gasped, shielding her face, but the flames did not burn. Instead, they carried her somewhere else. The sound of wind and thunder vanished. She opened her eyes to find herself standing in a vast, silent hall made of glass and bone. Golden roots ran along the floor, pulsing like veins. Above her, a ceiling of glowing crystal reflected the faces of countless souls, some weeping, some smiling, all watching her. A child's voice echoed softly. "You came for me." She turned. At the far end of the hall stood a boy, no older than 12, dressed in simple black. His eyes were the same as Lucian's, calm, ancient, and heavy with knowing. "You're the heir," Amelia whispered. The boy nodded, but not the way he remembers. He stepped closer. The air around him shimmered, carrying a faint warmth. "Father sealed part of his soul inside me before the council took him. That's how he survived the curse. But it also means—" He looked up at her, his gaze piercing. "If I die, he dies too." Amelia's breath caught. "Lucian never told me that." "He couldn't," the boy said quietly. "He doesn't remember everything. When the curse broke, his memories fractured. He thinks I'm only an heir, not his other half." The realization hit her like thunder. Lucian hadn't just lost his past, he'd lost part of himself. The boy tilted his head slightly, studying her wrist. "You carry his bond. That makes you more than mortal now. The council will come for you, not because of love, but because of what your choice created." Before she could ask more, the hall trembled. Cracks spread across the glass floor. Through them, Amelia saw fire swirling below. Not ordinary fire, but moving like living veins of anger. The boy looked around, alarmed. "Cassian found us. You must go. Come with me," she said, reaching for his hand. "I can't," he replied. "I am not truly here." This is the chamber of memory. Only those bound by the seal can enter. "But you can take what I give you." He lifted his palm. From it, a small crystal formed, glowing faintly red and gold. This is the Heart of Dawn. It carries the last memory of who Lucian was before the curse. When he touches it, he will remember, and only then can he face Cassian. She took it carefully, feeling its pulse sync with her heartbeat. Suddenly, a shadow burst through the hall, tall, winged, and terrible. Cassian's voice thundered through the fire. "The mortal dares touch the blood of night." "She must be erased," the boy shouted. "Run!" The mirror appeared again behind her, flickering wildly. Amelia turned and sprinted, clutching the crystal to her chest. She leapt into the fire just as Cassian's shadow reached out. The world spun. When she fell back into her body, she was again in the mirror chamber, breathing hard, trembling. The glow of the crystal still alive in her hands, but she was no longer alone. A figure stood in the corner, waiting. Not Cassian, Lucian. His eyes were dim, his movements weak. But when he saw the crystal, he froze. "Where did you find that?" he whispered. "In the mirror of fire," Amelia said. "Your son gave it to me." Lucian's expression darkened with both hope and dread. He stepped closer, his hand hovering over the crystal. "If this is what I think it is, then I was never meant to survive without him." Before she could answer, the crystal pulsed, and Lucian's eyes flared bright crimson. The air filled with the sound of wings and ancient chants echoing through the mansion's walls. Amelia stepped back, terrified yet unable to look away. Lucian gasped, clutching his chest as if centuries of forgotten pain were flooding back, and then in a voice both his and not his, he whispered, "The heir was never my son. He was my soul." The candles exploded in white light, and the mansion trembled as something immense awakened beneath their feet, something that had waited for this truth to be spoken. The Council of Shadows. The mansion no longer felt like stone and wood. It breathed. Walls expanded and contracted with the rhythm of Lucian's pulse. The floor rippled like the surface of water reflecting red light. Amelia stood frozen near the burning candles as Lucian knelt on the ground, gasping, the crystals still glowing between his trembling hands. His voice was a mix of pain and memory. "They sealed half my soul inside that child. He was never meant to live apart from me. Now that you've returned the memory, the curse is breaking, and so is the boundary that protected this world from the realm of night." The room shook violently. Glass shattered, sending reflections scattering across the walls like frightened spirits. Outside, the valley trembled. The moon bled into a deeper shade of crimson. Amelia rushed forward, kneeling beside him. "Tell me how to stop it," she said. Lucian looked up, his eyes burning brighter. "It cannot be stopped. It must be guided. When the two halves of a soul merge, they either become whole or destroy everything around them." His words were heavy, almost beyond understanding. Amelia felt her heart tighten. "Then I'll help you control it. There must be a way." Lucian reached for her hand, his cold fingers brushing her wrist. The golden seal between them flared, connecting their hearts through light. She felt his power, vast, ancient, endless, rushing into her veins like a storm. In that moment, she saw fragments of his past flash before her eyes. A kingdom of night where vampires and humans once lived together. A council that betrayed him to preserve their power. A woman who looked like her. Same face, same eyes, standing beside Lucian centuries ago. Amelia gasped and pulled her hand away. "Who was she?" Lucian's expression turned hollow. "You," he whispered. "Or the one you were before time folded upon itself." When the council erased the Dawn bloodline, they rewrote fate itself. "You were taken from me, reborn in another age." Before she could process his words, a deep, echoing sound filled the mansion, like thunder made of whispers. Lucian rose, his voice low and tense. "They're here." The ceiling cracked open, revealing dark clouds swirling above. From them descended 6 figures cloaked in smoke and light, the Council of Shadows. Each one carried a symbol glowing faintly on their chest, and their faces were hidden behind masks of bone. The leader spoke first, voice ancient and cold. "Lucian of Eldon, your time among mortals ends. The seal is broken and the world bleeds for it." Lucian stood tall despite his exhaustion. "You called it a curse, but it was mercy. And mercy is what you feared." The council's light flickered. Another voice spoke, softer but sharper. "You were never punished for love, Lucian. You were punished for trying to end the divide." Amelia stepped forward, defiance burning in her eyes. "And what divide is worth destroying a man's soul?" The council turned toward her. One of them spoke slowly. "The divide that keeps mortals alive. If he becomes whole again, the night and the day will collapse into one. Every living thing will lose its boundary. No light, no dark, only endless dusk." Lucian's voice trembled. "You lied to us all. You feared what we could become together. So you created fear to rule both sides." The council raised their hands. Chains of silver light shot from their palms, wrapping around Lucian's body. He groaned, falling to his knees. Amelia screamed, running toward him, but the nearest council member flicked a hand and sent her crashing backward. She hit the ground hard, vision blurring. Lucian looked up, eyes burning red and gold. "Don't touch her," he growled. A pulse of energy erupted from him, shattering the chains. The council staggered back as the entire mansion shook violently. The torches burst into flames, and shadows twisted into forms of winged beasts. Cassian appeared from behind the council, his smile cold and certain. You always needed her to awaken, brother. Now you've done the one thing that ensures your fall, Lucian's voice thundered. You betrayed the bloodline for power. No, Cassian said calmly. I saved it. The council offered me eternity beyond death. You chose to be their enemy. And now, I'll take what's left of your soul. He lunged forward faster than sight. Lucian caught his attack, their hands colliding with a flash of red light that sent both flying apart. Amelia forced herself up, ignoring the pain. Her eyes caught the flicker of the crystal, still glowing faintly on the floor. She grabbed it and ran toward Lucian, pressing it against his chest. The light exploded. Time seemed to stop. For a moment, she was nowhere and everywhere, floating between darkness and dawn. She saw Lucian's soul split in two halves, fighting to merge. His voice echoed through her mind. Amelia, if I fall, promise me you'll remember who you are. Tears burned her eyes. I won't let you fall. But when the light faded, Lucian was gone. Only his cloak lay where he had stood. Cassian's laughter echoed through the collapsing hall. You cannot save what was never meant to exist. The council began to fade into mist, retreating back into the storm above. Only Cassian remained, his eyes glowing brighter than before. He turned toward Amelia, smiling faintly. The Dawn bloodline always forgets. That's its curse. But soon, you will remember everything, and then you'll wish you hadn't. The ground cracked open beneath her feet. Fire and darkness rose together, swallowing the mansion's center. Amelia clutched Lucian's cloak, the crystal still burning in her palm. As she fell into the darkness, her voice broke through the roar of the collapsing world. Lucian, I will find you. Even if I have to walk through the end of time. The crimson moon above the valley flickered once, then went black. The realm between dawns. The world she fell into was not made of time. It was neither night nor day, only a vast horizon of silver mist and suspended stars. The air was weightless, and the ground shimmered like glass reflecting dreams. When Amelia opened her eyes, she realized she was still holding Lucian's cloak. But it no longer felt like fabric. It pulsed faintly, alive, as if the last part of him still lingered inside it. She stood slowly, her legs weak, her breath trembling. Above her, constellations shifted like thoughts. She tried to call Lucian's name, but her voice vanished before it reached the air. A whisper answered anyway. You walk the realm between dawns, she turned sharply. A woman stood nearby, tall and cloaked in light. Her face was calm, her eyes golden, neither vampire nor mortal, something older. Who are you? Amelia asked. The woman smiled gently. The keeper of memories. This is the space between death and rebirth. Those who break the boundary of love and fate always pass through here. Amelia's pulse quickened. Where is Lucian? The keeper's gaze softened. He is here, but not whole. His soul has fallen into the mirror depths. If you find him, you may bring him back. But you must give something in return. Anything, Amelia said without hesitation. Your past, the keeper replied. You were not born in this age. You are the echo of the woman who once loved him before the world was rewritten. If you reclaim him, you will lose the memory of who you became. Your mortal life, your name, everything that made you human. Amelia hesitated. Her heart ached with both fear and longing. If he's lost, then I am already no one, she whispered. The keeper nodded slowly, and the mist around them began to part. Beneath the glass floor, a vast ocean of light appeared, swirling with fragments of memory, love, and despair. Then follow the sound that once bound you, the keeper said. Your mark will guide the way. The golden seal on Amelia's wrist began to glow, forming a faint thread of light that descended into the depths below. Without another word, she stepped forward, and the ground dissolved beneath her feet. She fell through light and darkness, through visions that blurred like tears. She saw flashes of another life, her hand in Lucian's centuries ago, the council burning their vows, Cassian standing apart, his eyes full of jealousy and pain. When she landed, she found herself in a ruined cathedral bathed in pale fire. Broken stained glass painted the air with ghosts of color, and at the center of the hall lay Lucian, still, silent, and surrounded by black feathers that shimmered like oil. Amelia ran to him and knelt, her hands trembling as she touched his face. Lucian, please wake up. His skin was colder than before, but his chest rose faintly. His eyes opened halfway, glowing faintly gold and red. You came, he whispered. I promised, she said softly. Lucian tried to rise, but shadows clung to him, dragging him back down. The council sealed the rest of me here. The fortune they feared, it's not gold or power, it's memory. The Dawn bloodline could rewrite the world through remembrance. They destroyed it so that no one could undo their rule. Amelia's heart pounded. And Cassian? He became their weapon. He feeds on what others forget. He will erase this realm if he finds it. The ground shook suddenly. A crimson crack split the cathedral floor, and Cassian emerged through the light, his wings now vast and edged with fire. Too late, he said, his voice echoing like thunder. You brought him here, and now the realm will collapse under both your hearts. Lucian forced himself up, shielding Amelia behind him. Cassian, end this before you lose what little remains of your soul. Cassian laughed, stepping closer. My soul ended the day you chose her over eternity. Amelia stepped forward, her eyes burning with defiance. And yet eternity still fears love. Cassian raised his hand. Black fire burst forth, striking the walls. Lucian caught the flames with his own, the two forces colliding in a storm of light and darkness that shattered the air. Amelia was thrown back, clutching the cloak tighter. The keeper's voice echoed faintly through her mind. Remember who you were, and he will remember who he is. She pressed her palm to her heart, closing her eyes. The golden mark on her wrist expanded, wrapping her body in radiant light. She saw visions rushing back, her first life, her first name, her first promise to Lucian under the same crimson moon. When she opened her eyes, she was no longer Amelia the mortal. She was Elira, the dawn-born queen of the first night, the woman who had once defied gods for love. Lucian froze mid-battle, his eyes widening. Elira, he whispered. The moment he said her true name, his flames turned gold. Cassian stumbled back, blinded by the light. Elira walked toward Lucian, her aura glowing bright enough to make the shadows retreat. She took his hand, and the two seals, his curse and her bond, fused into one blazing symbol that floated above them. The entire cathedral began to dissolve into light. Cassian screamed, trying to resist, but the shadows broke apart like smoke in wind. Lucian looked at her, his voice barely a whisper. If we merge now, the realm may shatter. Then let it shatter, she said softly. Love has rebuilt worlds before. They held each other as the light engulfed everything. The curse, the pain, the centuries of separation. For a moment, there was no night, no day, only the brilliance of two souls remembering they were never meant to be apart, and then silence. When the light faded, the ruins were gone. In their place stood a dawn unlike any before, warm, gentle, infinite. But Lucian was no longer beside her. Only his cloak rested on the ground, the seal glowing faintly at its edge. Elira fell to her knees, tears of light streaming down her face. You kept your promise, she whispered. Now it's my turn. Above her, a voice, his voice, echoed softly through the rising sun. The fortune was never gold. It was you. The dawn that remembered, the first light of dawn spread across an empty world. No wind, no sound, only stillness. Elira stood in the center of a plain made of glass and light. Where once stood the realm between dawns, now there was nothing, only a faint echo of Lucian's voice drifting through the air. She looked down at his cloak, the seal still glowing faintly. Every time it pulsed, she could feel his heart somewhere far beyond reach. She knelt, her fingers brushing the glowing mark. You said the fortune was me, she whispered. Then let me give it back. As she spoke, the air shimmered. The keeper of memories appeared once more, her golden eyes filled with sorrow and pride. You have crossed the final threshold, she said softly. You hold the power to rewrite the ending, but what you restore, you must also lose. Elira's voice was calm, though her soul trembled. If I can bring him back, then let the world take everything else. The keeper raised her hand, and the horizon split open like a mirror. Behind it, Elira saw two worlds. One bathed in eternal night, ruled by fear and silence, the other glowing with endless dawn, lifeless and frozen. These were the choices of creation, the keeper said. Light or dark. One could never exist without the other. But you and Lucian were both a bridge. That's why the council feared you? Elira turned her gaze to the horizon. Then I'll end their fear. She stepped forward, raising Lucian's cloak high. The seal lifted from the fabric, expanding into a circle of fire above her. Within its light, she saw his face. Faint, fading, waiting. Her voice echoed across both worlds. Lucian of Eldon, last heir of the night, hear the name that binds your soul. Return, not as shadow or flame, but as what you were meant to be. The seal burst into radiant light, and the ground beneath her cracked open, spilling memories like rivers. She saw the mansion again. The storm, their vows, every tear, every touch. All of it flowed into the air, weaving a new dawn. Then from the light, a figure stepped forward. Lucian, not pale, not cursed, but whole. His eyes carried the color of twilight, both sun and shadow. He looked at her as if seeing her for the first time and the 1,000th time at once. Elira, he whispered. She smiled faintly, tears glimmering. You remember? Lucian reached out, his hand trembling. You brought me back. No, she said softly. We brought them back. The balance. Around them, the world began to pulse with life again. The glass plains turned to soil. The mist became clouds. Rivers of light split into streams of day and night weaving together. For the first time since the beginning, both realms breathed as one. But as the light grew stronger, Elira's form began to fade. Lucian caught her shoulders, panic flooding his eyes. No, don't, he said. You can't leave now. She placed her hand over his heart. I'm not leaving. I'm becoming. The keeper's voice whispered faintly through the rising wind. Every dawn must have its keeper. Elira smiled through her tears. Then I'll be this one. The glow spread from her fingertips, wrapping Lucian in gold. He tried to hold her, but his arms passed through her like light through mist. Her voice lingered, soft and warm. Live as both night and day. Love as both shadow and sun. And when you see the first crimson moon, remember, I am still with you. Her form dissolved into the air, scattering like 1,000 sparks that merged into the rising dawn. The horizon blazed, and a new sun rose, neither red nor gold, but a blend of both. Lucian stood alone on the reborn earth, the seal of light now etched upon his chest. He looked toward the horizon where her light faded and whispered, The fortune was never hidden. It was always the heart that remembered. The wind carried her laughter, faint but eternal.